I'm just a normal Australian citizen, but I'm shocked by the antics of Labor governments in all states, and especially the federal Labor government, regarding this new or ongoing epidemic of domestic violence that they keep on harping about in Australia. It's easy to debunk the fact that it's what they call a fact that there's an epidemic of domestic violence going on in the country. This is just another tactic by a floundering and ever unpopular Labor government to create a case and a distraction for the general population, and using the most common victim, male, the Australian fathers and boys and men of this who actually defend this country and are the backbone of the workforce of this country. And basically what I have to say is the following. You go to the Australian Bureau of Statistics and you look at the Australian population. At the moment we're around 25 million people. We are roughly divided equally between half men, half women, so 12.5 million men, 12.5 million women, or males, females. That's the current ratio. We'll leave out all the other fantasies because in the rest of the world, there's only male and female, not the lunacy that the left-wing governments have imposed on us, that there are multiple genders and you can be a unicorn in the morning and a zebra in the afternoon and maybe a lion or a crocodile in time for tea. Basically, domestic violence is not a gendered issue. There is an international study called PASK, Studies on Domestic Violence, and those of you who know how to type, and I usually type with 2 fingers, those of you who can type even quicker than me, can go online and look up, as I said, PASK, Studies on Domestic Violence. And the results are quite unequivocal. Men tend to be more physical in their approach to domestic violence. Women are psychologically more abusive in domestic violence. It's a 50-50 game, and the jury is out on which is more devastating to the victims. Domestic violence, ladies and gentlemen, is domestic violence, no matter who does it and in what direction. It can be adults against children, it can be men against women, women against men, the young against the old against the young. It goes, there's multiple facets of to domestic violence. Labor is on a bender against men and trying to shame the Australian men, and they say men are bad, men are evil, men are this, men are that, because 26 women have been killed by partners. But it's interesting that they don't say anything about the number of men that may have been killed already by their partners in Australia. Only men are apparently evil bastards that need to be put down. And the thing is, 26 women. Now, 26 women are a total of 0.0008% of total women in this country. That is not an epidemic. 26 women out of 12.5 million females in the country, that is not an epidemic. And to throw $1 billion at the problem, I wonder who's going to get those $1 billion, because Labor keeps throwing money at that, and that problem just doesn't seem to go away. Isn't that interesting? But somebody eats up that $1 billion. Somebody will eat up that $1 billion, and the problem, the correct problem, is never addressed. Because it's actually interesting that all of us men in Australia are demonized by this campaign, when domestic violence tends to be circumscribed to the majority of it to certain groups. And what Labor doesn't tell anybody is that since Julia Gillard and Nicola Roxon came along with that little brain fart of theirs, that women needed to be able to go to the police and complain without the fear of not being able to prove what they say. And so they did away with consequences for perjury. Isn't it interesting? That's domestic violence probably went up substantially because women know that they can now lie. And I'll give you a case. One of many, actually, that I know of. But this is the most egregious one that I ever came across. In 2017, a lady that I didn't know at the time decided she'd had enough of her husband and decided to have an affair. And because the husband was a stay-at-home dad looking after their 4 kids, she decided that she was going to get rid of him, and she was going to get rid of the butler because the husband was her cook and gardener and home minder, the kids nanny and everything all rolled into one. So she accused him of, in this case, of rape, because what happened there was the lover called the husband and said, "Hey, your wife is hitting on me." So she comes home, and he has an argument with her and ends up giving her 3 fat slaps. So she prodded him, and he stupidly fell for it. They go to bed, have what he thought was make-up sex. Next morning, she takes the poorer of their 2 cars and goes to the police station and accuses him of rape. He gets arrested for rape. He gets taken in. He manages to prove that it wasn't rape, it was consensual sex, because he showed the police the video that they'd made of each other having what he thought was make-up sex. And then the police went on for another 6 months. And after 6 months, they decided to accuse him of attempted strangulation, because at some change of position while they were having sex, his hand went past her neck, and all of a sudden, it was a bit like that case in London where this guy rubbed shoulders for a fraction of a second in the London subway, and the Met tried to accuse this guy of attempted rape for as many passengers. You touch somebody else in the public in the crowd, there was an accusation of attempted rape, and we all know where that went. Well, the Queensland police in this case decided to continue the case. Now, said person who accused husband of rape was and is still a doctor, and in this country apparently cheating wives and doctors don't lie. Yeah, right. She not only accused the husband of rape, but accused him of stealing an Audi Q7 and a Ducati Monster 1200R, which was the bike that she was riding. He had just crashed his Aprilia Tuono 1100 racing against her in Brisbane, and was actually on crutches at the time. And so the dear lady goes and accuses him of stealing the vehicles that she left behind at home. And I actually have the PPSR reports that I took out on both vehicles, showing that she, on the day that she went to accuse him of domestic violence, she declared those vehicles stolen when they were at home. And they were co-owned because they were married. So this was just part of the family property pool. But she was trying to rack up as much crap against him as she could. And the police went along for the ride. Anyway, 6 months later, they dropped that charge and accused him instead of torture. And torture, why? Because she'd been committing defamation against him all of this time, accusing him of rape, and including to people that they knew. And he went and showed a couple of people parts of the video that he'd showed the police, which proved his innocence. And so these people went to her and told her, "Oh, but she's accused him of rape, and he showed me this video, and it's not." So she goes to the police and accuses him of humiliating her. So now the police have a genuine case against him for humiliating her. Now, falsely accusing your husband of rape, which could have gotten him years in jail, falsely accusing your husband of stealing vehicles which he co-owns and which insurance, on to add insult to injury, actually paid her out for. That's the best one. Insurance, this was Suncor and QBE. They both companies paid her out, one for the Audi Q7 and the other one for the motorbike. I know this because the vehicles were later picked up at my house. We arranged this with lawyers, and the vehicles were later picked up at my house. He'd had them put away somewhere for a while. And so what happened was the vehicles were declared stolen, fraudulently declared stolen, and the kind doctor got paid out for them. Amazing. If it was a man that had done that, he'd be rotting in jail. But this is a woman, she can get away with anything, absolutely anything. So when you Australian women come around saying, oh, I'm a victim of this, I'm a victim of that, those that are getting genuinely beaten by their husbands, my heart goes out to you. The men that are getting beaten and downtrodden by their wives and physically and psychologically also abused, my heart goes out to you. You deserve all the sympathy in the world. But those that commit fraud, knowing that the system fully supports them, I don't have the time of day for you, because you're just fraudsters. Like this lady doctor, you're just fraudsters. But the case gets worse. Anyway, the husband gets accused of domestic violence, gets accused of all the crap, first by the wife and then the police, who carried on until they broke the tail lights and got something on him. And he gets, he ends up having a plea deal with the police, where the police said, well, mate, you're going down for something. You've got to go down for something. So the offer is this. You take 3 charges of hitting her, plus 2 of distribution of pornography. So the evidence that proved his innocence all of a sudden became distribution of pornography. So he got 4 months in jail for the distribution of pornography, and was arrested. So he goes to the local jail for 4 months, and once on the day he's set to be released, he gets taken in by immigration because he was on permanent residence visa, and if you get charged with more than 12 months, apparently you get an automatic cancellation of your permanent residence. So he was taken into Brisbane Immigration Detention Centre, and he, from there, with his new partner, he appealed the deportation. I went on his behalf as a character witness. By then I knew him well enough and to vouch for him. And another doctor who is a colleague of his wife, or an ex-colleague of his wife, who'd known them for a few years as well, also went on his behalf. And he won the appeal. So he gets released just before Christmas. I go overseas, and around the 3rd or 4th of January, a couple of weeks after he's released, he phones me and he said he's just been arrested because the wife had gone over the courts directly to Peter Dutton, who was then Minister of Home Affairs, falsely accused him of all sorts of shit, all the crap that she had accused the police, him to the police, and which had been untrue. And Peter Dutton had him promptly, on the eve of him actually flying out of the country because his father was dying of cancer in London. On the eve of flying out of the country, he gets rearrested, and then a few days later taken to England, escorted to England by 3 border force guards, handed his passport back to him in Heathrow. All they had to do was take him to Singapore and then let him loose in Singapore. But no, Peter Dutton wanted to really rub it in. So he was taken all the way to the UK. And he was handed his passport and a bill for $14,000 for the flights of the gentleman that accompanied him. Anyway, he later contacts me and explains everything that's just happened to him. And what we have is a situation where I say and I repeat, Australian women, if you want to get rid of your husband and get the house, the kids, the money, everything else, all you have to do is you accuse the chump of domestic violence, you go to the police, and you don't have